Jessica Smith-Lennon, and I'm going to be your host for this evening. I am also the Deputy Director of the 11th Street Bridge Park. As I already said, we are very grateful and we appreciate the fact that you came to join us tonight. As someone mentioned, this is dinner time, and someone said their bedtime is 9 o'clock. So we're going to do our best to give you an in-depth presentation, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end, and we will be able to answer them. But tonight we will hear from members of our engineering team and architect team, as well as our equitable development managers. Before I turn things over to the team, I would like to share a brief background about the park so we can dive into progress updates. I know many of you are already very familiar with the park, but I don't want to take that for granted and would just like to give a brief background on it. If someone has additional questions, our staff is happy to answer those as well. But the 11th Street Bridge Park is a project of building bridges across the river, awarding nonprofit that manages locations like the Arc and Skyline Workforce Center. The park is a collaboration between our nonprofit, Building Bridges Across the River, and the District Department of Transportation. I'm used to saying DDOT, but I'm doing my best not to use acronyms. So as you can see here, this is where the park is located. Down at the bottom where is southeast, where you see Frederick Douglass House, that's the east bank of the river, and to the right where you see U.S. Capitol, that is the west bank or the west side of the river. This community-driven space will connect Capitol Hill, Navy Yard, and historic Anacostia, as well as Fairlawn neighborhood. The park is bound by the Washington Navy Yard on one side and the National Park Service's Anacostia Park on the east bank of the Anacostia River. And it will be adjacent to the current 11th Street Bridge, vehicular bridge, The district government and Building Bridges Across the River are transforming the aged infrastructure into the city's first elevated park, a new venue for healthy recreation, environmental education, and the arts. In order to save costs, the deck was removed, as you can see here, and the old piers remain and will be the base of the park. If you head down to Anacostia Park, or if you have been on one of our walking tours, you will know that these are the current piers that you see right here in this photo. And if you have not been on our walking tours, please sign up for our email updates at bridgepark.org/email. And this will alert you to any events that we are having coming up, as well as progress updates regarding whether it's equity updates as well as construction updates. And most importantly, you can sign up for a walking tour at that time. Our project goals. So the 11th Street Bridge Park will include community-generated programming, and it will have an outdoor performance space, playgrounds, urban agriculture, and as well an environmental education center, which will be run by Anacostia Watershed Society. So this project started with the community and continues to be driven by the community. In our early years, meetings were held to determine if the community wanted a project like this, and also do they want it in their neighborhood. After that, additional meetings were held to shape the design and programming spaces of the park. The community selected the design team, who we will meet shortly, and they also helped to craft and design our equity strategies, which you'll hear from our communication manager. I'd like to invite Nick Nice up from WRA, which is our engineering team. And after Nick, you will hear from our design team, Jason Long from OMA, and Hallie Boyce from OLIN, and our equitable development managers, Kia and Anna.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, I'm going to kind of pause here and just let you all take in this slide. It's a little busy, right? and for good reason. So since, as Jessica indicated, since we selected the design team back in 2014, I believe, we have coordinated with over 30 local and federal agencies throughout the environmental permitting process. And you can see all bullets here. We have secured approvals and permits thus far. I think it's around 13 permits and approvals. So you can understand when somebody asks, well, why does it take so long to construct a project or get a project to the construction phase? Well, this is one of those aspects of project development that sometimes takes a good bit of time to coordinate with all of those agencies. And the 11th Street Bridge Park is a unique project in that it is smack dab in the heart of DC, where there is a lot of federal and local agencies that we are required to coordinate with. So understanding all of the agencies with jurisdiction is key to securing the appropriate approval. So we have to take that into consideration. We have to take into consideration their roles and responsibilities, as well as their the approvals associated with those agencies, and also the impacts associated with this project. And with any project, we try to keep those impacts to a minimum. And one example of why this has taken a bit longer than we anticipated, some of the permitting activities, was the recent, good news, we did secure it, it's the last bullet here so far, this past January, we secured the 401 water quality certification permit from DOEE. But we were required, because we were having impacts to wetlands and streams, we were required to do further coordination with that agency and develop mitigation to mitigate our impacts to those resources. And so that is why, in this instance, we had the timeline for our permitting process took a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated. With that said, I'm very excited to let you all know that we have 3 permits remaining. We have the Army Corps of Engineers permit, the Coast Guard permit, and the building construction permit. And we anticipate getting those permits, or receiving clearances on each of those permits in March of 2024. Following the receipt of these permits, we will initiate solicitation for our general contractor. We anticipate that to be around the, I would say the April-May timeframe, and then we would anticipate the selection of our general contractor around the August. So we're very excited. We've got a lot of things moving here over the next several months to get us in that position. But that's, from a permitting standpoint, that's where we're at. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica.
Thanks. I'm not Jessica, but no. Oh, perfect. Thanks. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Jason Long with OMA, and I've been working with Allie and Olin to design the Bridge Park for 10 years now. It takes a long time, but it's worth it when it's a project like this. And throughout our process, really, we've had these series of 4 goals, trying to create new social connections, re-engage residents with the Anacostia River, kind of bringing new health potentials via the things we're going to bring to the park, and also bringing new economic opportunity. And I think we're going to try to present the bridge design to you tonight in those terms. And I'm going to start off by talking about how we're trying to use the design of the bridge park to reconnect communities, which is really the core goal of this bridge, which is a literal bridge and also a figurative bridge as well. And one thing to say at the outset of this, we're going to present the design that it's not that there are major changes that have happened to the design since you may have last seen it in the press or it was last presented, but we're going to present it here, not assuming that everyone knows much about it in some detail. So to start with, of course, the east side of the Anacostia River has long been a place that was somewhat disconnected from the rest of Washington, D.C. So here you see L'Enfant's plan for D.C., the famous plan that prioritized the Capitol and the main public spaces around it with a series of intersecting boulevards. You can see here that that plan actually didn't even include the east side of the river. And this pink line that you see here is the site of the 11th Street Bridge Park. So for us, the 11th Street Bridge Park, which is going to be built over the remaining bridge piers of the former 11th Street Bridge, is an incredible opportunity to try to reconnect neighborhoods and provide us a place for different communities throughout Washington, D.C., and especially east of the river, to come together. Here you see an aerial of the overall site from 1949. And you see here the original 11th Street Bridge that we're kind of reusing the structure of in order to create the bridge park. At this moment, there wasn't yet 295, which you see here, which of course later came to create more of a barrier between historic Anacostia and the water. And of course, this project is an incredible opportunity to try to make a new place that can, in a way, overcome the barriers of 295 and even maybe of Anacostia Park to some extent, to bring people to the water. And when we did the competition, there was a competition in 2014 to try to think about how to design this, and there were a number of different entrants, and the Building Bridges Across the River team gave us at that moment kind of wealth of information, and one of the things they gave us was a series of models that school children had made as part of an exercise to envision what the bridge could be. And for us, that was really a kind of inspiration. Not that we took any specific ideas, but with the spirit of this, and of this model in particular that shows not just a path across the river, but a lot of things happening, and so much happening, so much program on the bridge, and so much life on it that it had to project out and create a new series of piers almost going out and over the river. And for us, we wanted, looking at this, to also make the bridge a destination, not just a path over the water. The other thing we got was the product of a whole host of community meetings that had taken place before we even started, where the program for the bridge and the activities that would take place on it were determined. And so we already knew at the outset that we wanted to provide a place for food, a cafe on the bridge. We wanted to provide a new performance space looking out at the water. We wanted to make new places for people to engage with the water, like kayaking and canoe launches. And so when we began the design process, we wanted to make a simple and potent shape for the bridge that could facilitate all that life. And so the idea is quite simple. There's two platforms, one that extends from either side, almost like piers, that intersect in the middle. And those two piers are each sloped just a little under 5%, so a very gradual slope that's accessible, and they come together in the middle of the river. And that shape, this X shape, creates a kind of multi-layered life for the bridge. It's a shape that facilitates the bridge's structure. It also allows for shade across the bridge, and it also facilitates all this different program that I mentioned. So starting with a picnic and hammock grove, a main plaza at the intersection, a cafe underneath the eastern overlook, and an environmental education center that actually starts on the bridge and goes down to the level of the river. And the culmination of those two platforms then creates this hopefully dynamic public space within Washington, D.C. So, and then here you see kind of more realistic rendering, and I'll mention a little bit what's happening here using this image, and then start talking through what's going on. So, this here is the connection to historic Anacostia along what was formerly Good Hope Road and is now Marionberry Avenue. Coming around and then leading you up to a new performance space looking out over the river with a kayak and canoe launch. This then leads you up to the actual entrance to the bridge park itself, where there's what's actually a mechanical plant but is topped with urban agriculture. And there's the Environmental Education Center, a 21st century play space. Here the cafe and community room. Above that, a lawn, the main plaza, the picnic and hammock gardens, kind of rain gardens that lead you down then to the west side of the river. And the bridge itself is also tapered so that its widest part is on the east side of the river so that we can accommodate active programs that will provide new activities in life along in Anacostia Park. And here you see an overview of all these different programs I just mentioned that we'll also go through again in a minute. So starting from the west side of the river, here you see the Navy Yard wall and the path down to the walk along the Navy Yard at the river. So this will be slightly reconfigured, but more or less it's as you would walk up it today. And this culminates then in a stair that can take you up to the bridge or an accessible path that leads around and up onto the bridge park at 11th Street. You walk along a 15-foot wide path, taking you through this gateway, effectively, along a series of rain gardens, and you're walking then underneath what we call the Capitol Overlook. That Capitol Lookout is a place where you can go up on top in order to get an overview of the city as a whole and also have views of the Washington Monument and the Capitol and the other places of DC and understand kind of where you are. This is also what we call the running track. There's a loop across the whole bridge where you can go and run, although you have to continually go uphill and downhill and uphill and downhill every quarter mile. But for people that are really into that, it will be fun. And then here you see again a night view looking out at the fireworks for the 4th of July, for example. So just below that, so you see this is the path that would lead you up to that Capitol Lookout. Just below that, the path coming from the west side continues through what we call the Picnic and Hammock Grove. So here there'll be some places to sit and eat, but also a series of hammocks that are being designed by local artists to really relax. As you continue up onto the bridge, you come to Anaquash Plaza, so the main connecting place within the bridge, where different kinds of events will take place throughout the year, different pop-ups, markets, who knows what will come. But it's a place where people can really gather in a public space that's hardscape and also flat. Beyond that is the cafe porch that you see here. So while on the west side, this upper part of the bridge is open, the kind of open set of paths that makes the gateway that I showed you before. Here it's solid to form the roof of the cafe and the support for a lawn that's above the cafe, and also shade for the porch itself. So on that lawn above, you can, again, do anything you might do in a park. You can do yoga looking out over the river, or you can just sit and relax or have a good or even a bad day, depending on how it's going. So here, below that is the cafe space. We thought food was an important way to bring people together on the bridge and an important way to serve people also on the bridge. So this cafe looks out over the water. So here you're looking east, and on just to the north, you have a view downriver. And then here, though, there's a kitchen and there'll be food. And this also serves as a community space where community groups can gather together and have different meetings, or where we could even be having a meeting like this for the next Bridge Park someday in the future. The porch is an important place because it's like the Anaquash Plaza, it's a flat space where people can gather together and have different kinds of events, but in this case, it's covered, so it provides shade and also protection from the elements. And it's a place where we can imagine all kinds of things happening. For example, this is a kind of book fair, but it could also have a different role at the nighttime. Here you see a view from the east, where you then see the play space and the Environmental Education Center. And through all these different programs and lives that are really going to take place on the bridge, we want it to be a way that people come together and meet, where you meet your neighbors, you make new friends through really having a life that's not just about passing them, but about being and sharing a space together with them. So with that, I'll pass it to Hallie to talk more about the River Community Hub.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Jessica. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Hallie Boyce, partner at OLIN Landscape Architects, and I want to introduce my colleague, Judy Vanoski, who is sitting in the front row. She's been working on the project for several years as well, focused on the living systems. And in fact, tonight we're going to be talking aspect of the project, which is the Bridge Park really has and will put a focus on river health, as well as the health of the communities adjacent to the river, and the interconnection between both. Really, the overarching goal is to improve the health of both the river and its communities. This is a beautiful view of the sunset, and it's these wonderful moments that the Anacostia provides today, and these are the types of moments that we want to capture in the future. The indigenous peoples, the Nacotchtank, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that term, that name, but they called this place Anaquash, thus the name for Anaquash Plaza, which means meeting place. So as Jason noted, we're really here to connect both sides of the river and create a place of exchange on the river. As he also noted, the highways 295 has disconnected the communities, the neighborhoods of historic Anacostia, Farallon, Berry Farm, Congress Heights from their river, as well as the Capitol Riverfront too. We also understand through our research that the river is in poor health, has been previously. There are recent efforts that have worked to clean the river, which I'll speak about in a moment, but there are really three sources of contaminants: the stormwater runoff, or non-point source pollution, the landfill, the contaminated sediments in the bottom of the river, and then also actually the combined sewer overflows. To the point where the Anacostia, as many of you know, used to be called the Forgotten River. It was sort of the back of house, and it had accumulated trash and debris and these contaminants. The toxins, as I said, from industrial activity along the riverfront have gathered in the bottom of the river. However, there is an effort and project, the sediment project, which will be working to clean up those legacy toxins as well. But the stormwater runoff brings many issues that you can see here, whether it be literal trash, nutrients, and sedimentation, a filling up of the river. At the same time, we understand that there are needs, particularly in Wards 7 and 8, for better opportunities for food access, grocery stores, for medical care and services are also lacking in these wards compared to the others in the district, and then access to safe and beautiful outdoor spaces. The Anacostia Watershed Society, who will be housed on the Bridge Park, their whole mission has been to restore and protect the river and its watershed communities, to make it a swimmable and fishable river for the health and enjoyment of all community members. And they have a number of tools, namely educational programming, that works to bridge this gap. They also are educating the public about the importance of this watershed. It's an urban watershed that serves 1 million people almost, and it sits within the larger Chesapeake Bay watershed. So it's very important to understand these are systems and how they're connected. But a key project that has made a difference in the health of the river today is the Clean Rivers Project, which has worked to reduce the contaminated combined sewer overflow volume by 98% as of 2023. This really provides more storage to separate the raw sewage that was being dumped into the river, and to treat that at the Blue Plains site. But when we started the competition, recognizing that both sides of the river had very different landscape characters. One was very built architectural, the Navy Yard side, and then Anacostia Park really is a lovely park in some respects, in that it's very open and green and soft, but it really lacked the layers of planting that one would expect in a public park today. And so, as Jason noted, really the concept was to give each side a bit of the other and make that intersection and connection through a series of programmatic elements that he described. Really, I see them as stepping stones across the river, encouraging people to flow back and forth, but also to linger longer and stay on the river and enjoy its beauty. We've worked to make it a highly connected site. We've greatly expanded. In red, you see all the new paths that will be in this area. The green are the existing connections, which allow both trails on either side of the river to be connected. And this is another view of the Navy Yard entrance with a very treed rain gardens on either side leading up to that X-form and platform that Jason described. On the Anacostia side, it's very much a park-like gateway, and we have a wonderful work of art that was commissioned by Building Bridges Across the River. Martha Jackson Jarvis of Jackson Jarvis Studio has created this amazing sunrise-sunset portal, which references the larger landscape of the river. So we think that'll be a wonderful way to greet visitors and residents to the park on a daily basis. There's a number of ecological strategies, the rain gardens that I talked about, really increasing the canopy because there aren't enough trees in Anacostia Park, and also a pollinator meadow that wraps around that amphitheater. Judy and our team has worked very hard to pick a palette of native plants and some adapted plants that really provide that critical shade that's needed, particularly in the summer months here in DC. Will provide beautiful seasonal interest that'll be changing throughout the seasons, and will create habitat for pollinators, birds, butterflies, and other insects. The plantings also figure into the stormwater management, encouraging rainwater to infiltrate in situ, and also to cleanse the water before it's released back into the river. We have 2 cisterns that are part of this management system as well. And here's just a view, a bird's eye view, with the Environmental Education Center on the left, that the BBAR offices and folks who will be managing the park, that's where they'll be located. And on your right, on the upper roof, is a urban agriculture garden, which will be connected to the cafe that Jason showed earlier. But ultimately, the Anacostia Watershed Society will be housed here, so they'll be able to continue their programs and expand upon their educational programs. School children will be coming here on a daily basis to get out and onto the water. We've worked to highlight their program that's been very successful in cleansing river water, the Mussel Power Program. Tens of thousands of mussels have been deployed in the river with school children doing some of that planting. And we use that as a theme for the play area that will be adjacent to the cafe on the bridge. We think it's a wonderful way to educate the next generation about the importance of this beautiful river. This is a view of the amphitheater looking back at the bridge, but it'll also have wonderful views up and down the river. This will be a place of community events that will be very connected to B-Bar has been advising what type of events will be happening here. And here you can see that pollinator meadow wrapping around that amphitheater. The opportunity to have that also be part of the educational program for the Anacostia Watershed Society. As Jason noted, there's the half-mile track, so we'll have to try that out. Might have to have some races, I think. But it's really a place that's going to encourage people to walk, to run, to bike, or if you're like me, just take in the view and relax on the upper Great Lawn. It's going to have incredible views of the river in all directions. Or possibly relax in the hammock grove, but most importantly have the opportunity to get out onto the river and take a tour of its breadth and scope. And really a wonderful place that will bring both residents as well as visitors together in the heart of the city and give people the opportunity not only to experience the river, but to, very importantly, to experience local culture. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kia.
Good evening, I'm Kia Johnson. I have the pleasure of being the Equitable Development Manager here for 11th Street Bridge Park. And now what we want to do is we've talked about the design, we've talked about how that has impacted the community. What me and my colleague Anna will be talking about is how we work and the equity work that we're doing is impacting the community currently and what our initiatives are, which is extremely important. As we know, when we think of development, we think of gentrification and how people in communities are displaced. And we've been extremely intentional with that. The community is a part of the entire process, but focusing on development without displacement. And through these slides, we'll basically tell you what that looks like. This is our impact area. So we are working within a 1 mile radius east of the river, focusing on them and creating equitable development strategies that really impact and are going to help uplift and build the community. As you can see, this is just a little bit more of an overview of how the differences of east of the river. As we all know, it has been systematically, economically displaced and underserved. And with that in mind, we were extremely intentional about creating our Equitable Development Plan. The Equitable Development Plan is made up of 34 strategies. And today I'm just going to share a little bit about 5 strategies or pillars that have been extremely impactful and really the focus of what do we need to provide for the community in order for them to thrive and also remain in the Anacostia area. So we have housing, workforce development, small business enterprise, arts and culture, and Anna will get into Equitable Development Plan 3.0 and the fact that we're adding a health and wellness section as well. So for housing, we had 2 initiatives, one of those being the Community Land Trust, which is now its own 501 entity, and they were built under this. But also we have our Ward 8 Home Buyers Club, and our goal is really to transform Ward 8 residents from renters into homeowners and really building generational wealth for them to be able to, live in their communities and thrive. As of today, we have had 153 Ward 8 community members become renters and homeowners. I think that deserves a round of applause. And with our partnerships with Manna, we really help them throughout their entire process with educating, bringing in guest speakers to really help them along the process. We've had guest speakers like TD Banks really talk about financial literacy, what you need to do, because everyone's in a different situation. With Geico, we have been giving up access to $2,500 in closing cost assistance, which can really be impactful for someone buying their first home, needing that extra push and support. Workforce training. So of course, how are we going to impact the community once we start construction? We want to be able to bring to our general contractor that we have people within our community who are trained and ready to work. And this is what the Skyland Workforce Center has done. As of to date, we have been able to train 259 east of the river residents who will be placed in construction jobs. I think that deserves a round of applause. As I said before, it's really important for community members to have the opportunity to not only be a part of that process, but also to be able to work within their communities, be able to pay bills and withstand and thrive in the community as well. Small business enterprise. Now, we have done 2 really major pool projects in the past few years. One of those being our small business, which is now preservation program. Yes, last year this was our pilot, where we worked with 10 Ward A businesses who really received pro bono services from our partners at Booz Allen. We were able to work with them for a year, creating scope plans in order for them to create up to 5 years of how can you grow, what can we do, testing products, marketing, and things of that nature. This year we launched our Bridge Spot, which is a mobile kiosk that tours the city, allowing 8 businesses to have a residency program with our partners at Essentra. They tested out products. We had one business, Kitchen Physician, if you're familiar. She was able to make over $5,000 in revenue just by using the kiosk and attending events. So that was pretty cool. And as of to date, we have invested $1.5 million into small businesses within east of the river. And specifically for arts and cultures, we find it very important to celebrate the richness of Anacostia. There are so many festivals around DC, and why not also celebrate this? We have our upcoming May 4th. This is our 10th, so please save that date. We're super excited to celebrate, again, the richness of Anacostia. And again, as we said, all the equitable development work we do is in response to the needs of the community. During the pandemic, we worked with our partners at Martha's Table and Far Southeast Family Strength and Collaborative, where we were able to provide over 650 families receiving $5,500 each of funding just as a relief attempt to help during that time. Again, we're extremely intentional about pouring into the community and assessing needs and allowing the community voice to be heard and responding. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anna, and she will give us an overview of our Equitable Development Plan 3.0.
All right, I'm your last speaker for the evening. I'm the one standing between you and dinner. So I will make it quick. So the last iteration of our Equitable Development Plan was released in 2015. A couple years ago, back in 2022, is when we came back together to discuss the latest rollout of our plan. Some of the key highlights of this new iteration, and I definitely encourage everyone to pick up a handout of this new plan before you leave if you didn't already grab one. But one of the main highlights is the addition of health and wellness strategies. We added 4 strategy areas under the health and wellness category: mental, emotional, and spiritual health, physical activity and recreation, access, mobility, pathway, and connectivity, as well as environmental health and justice. So I'll walk you just quickly through our process for coming to this new plan. We actually convened a number of our partners and a number of stakeholders who are fluent in issues of health and wellness, particularly within this community. Last year in February, we had an in-person town hall meeting on our campus at the ARC, which is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue, if you've never been there. We reconvened our Equitable Development Advisory Committee to review some of our existing strategies and make some recommendations for those. We then had another in-person town hall meeting in June. We took all of that feedback, so feedback from our in-person meetings, feedback from our committees, and internally we distilled those down and placed those comments online for some additional public comment. And those were online up until September 21st of last year. Once that process wrapped up, we worked with Ward 8-based multimedia studio Creative Junk Food to help us create the final plan that we have now. So again, 4 new strategy areas for the health and wellness section. There are 22 strategies. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go through all 22 strategies this evening, but just another plug to pick up that handout in the back so you can review those. These strategies were also developed to really lift up and amplify our farm program. We have 7 farm plots with around Ward 8. The 8th plot will actually be on the completed bridge. So there's 2 events that I want to share with you that fall under our health and wellness strategies that we're excited about. So we are currently in the plans, currently planning some June wellness events. And these events will take place once a week within the month of June, free and open to the public. We intend to have activities for all ages. A few of those activities that you could expect would be forest bathing, hands-on art workshops. And the intention with the June wellness programming is we want to see how many of our health and wellness strategy areas we can really cover with this programming. All of our programming is not just intended to be of service to the community, but we also want to see, okay, what kind of programming can we potentially look forward to on this completed bridge park. I also want to highlight our free Friday Farmers Market. So in partnership with DC Central Kitchen and Martha's Table, we will be hosting a free Friday Farmers Market. And some of you may participate in our CSA and our Saturday markets. Those will still be available for you to participate in. In addition to that, we've added a free Friday market. You'll be able to enjoy local produce from our bridge plots. Work with our farm team to pick your own produce. We'll be having seedling giveaways as well as healthy cooking demonstrations. Another aspect that also falls under our health and wellness category is our Stop the Violence programming. So, everything we do is shaped by the community. This is no exception. We met with a number of community folks and stakeholders back in July of last year to talk about some ways that we could really engage our youth. I mean, we all know what's going on, and we want to be proactive and not reactive. Shortly after that convening, we held a youth summit that August with over 250 attendees. The students, youth attendees, and those youth offered up a number of ideas themselves that we are going to be incorporating. One of those things is midnight basketball. That's going to be starting up soon. We're going to be offering community conflict resolution. Another aspect of our health and wellness plan is, of our Equitable Development Plan under the health and wellness strategy area is community connectivity. And we're super excited to announce a partnership with Comcast to provide free high-speed Wi-Fi connectivity throughout the park. So this also helps us kind of fulfill our mission of keeping residents connected while they are on the park. And definitely wanted to end with this, that this is a living document. We revisit it, we update it. We want you all to continue to help us shape it. If you have any ideas, programming ideas, please let us know. We're always willing to hear and to partner. Our programming and events manager, Terry Powell, is here. She's waving her hand, she's right here in the front. She's the one that you're going to be talking to. You can talk to Kia or I as well. But if you've ever attended Anacostia River Festival, that's her baby, just to let you know what this lady is capable of. So definitely connect with us, stay in contact, and stay in collaboration with us. Thank you.
And believe it or not, that's like not even everything. We probably could keep you here for about 5 or 6 hours and have a sleepover to share all the things that are going on and then wake up and have coffee together. But we encourage you to just stay in contact with us. Once again, bridgepark.org/email is a great way to just get a quick little recap of what's happening, what's going on. It's weekly, it's very short, it's not too long. Don't unsubscribe, just delete if you don't want to read that one. There's more information coming out. And then also on our social media, at dcbridgepark.org, at DC Bridge Park on most of the platforms. And shout out to Shamel over there, who has been doing an amazing job in just keeping that running and beautiful and everything else. We're going to have a question and answer portion right now, and I would just like to also invite Keith Jones up from DDOT, as well as Scott Kratz, who is Vice President, most of you guys know him already, but Vice President of Building Bridges Across the River and Director of the 11th Street Bridge Park. And we will take questions. Shamel and Teria will have mics available for you to ask questions. We just ask that you come down to the aisle and be prepared to answer your questions. So you can go ahead and head up if you're interested or if you have a question. Don't be shy. First one, break the ice. Go ahead, go for it. You can do it. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Arnold Leon, and I work at the group called DC. And one of the things that I'd be interested in knowing about is, will there be something on the bridge that will inform people there about the origins of the name Anacostia, which of course is the Anacostan tribe, and it gave the name to the river and to the neighborhood. And I've expressed some interest in discussing with Scott, actually, that this seems to be something that the people who use the park would be well served to know about. And unfortunately in our city, there isn't much acknowledgement to the Anacostans who lived here before the settlers, of course. So, thank you, that's...
No problem. Scott, would you like to share? Or
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see so many familiar faces. And thank you, for the question. I know we've been chatting about how to make sure that there is the deep and rich land acknowledgement for the inhabitants who've been here for thousands of years. So 2 ways to answer that question. One, as Hallie mentioned, last year we pulled together a group of community stakeholders, the curatorial committee, to help us select art for the park, one of which, as you know, is a giant 50-foot long mural that recognizes the contemporary Piscataway tribe, of which the Nacotchtank, the Anacostans, merged with. And so there's Chief Swan, that is in that mural. But we need to do a better job of telling to your point, it's often been a forgotten history. And I see lots of different opportunities of signage, of programming, of land recognition, and so forth. So I can't wait to A, read your book about the history of the Anacostans that you just gave me tonight, and B, brainstorm some more ways to make sure we acknowledge that.
thank you for the question.
Hi, good evening. This is a question for DDOT. I was wondering, in terms of thinking, I really love the concept of trying to connect the two sides, but with 295 sort of cutting off Anacostia, at the moment right now it's easier to get to the park, it feels like, from west of the river than it is from east of the river. And I was wondering what plans are to connect Anacostia and other neighborhoods to the park to even access the bridge in other ways other than driving and other transportation.
Yes, absolutely. Great question. Good evening. My name is Keith Jones. I'm the new Community Engagement Specialist for DDOT. Started last month, so I'm really brand new. But it's a good question. In fact, there are several projects and studies going on right now in DDOT. There's an I-295 study going on. They started, I believe, last month, as well as projects on the 11th Street Bridge as well. In fact, if you're in ANC 8A, they're doing a presentation next month, actually, to the ANC that they do virtual as well. So I have my business cards here today. You can reach out to me. I can give you information about that. But there are plans in the future to connect both sides of the river, including the Bridge Park and 295.
Can I jump in and add something too? Several years ago, we partnered with the Anacostia Art Center to put in some of those lighted artworks that are in there. That was a first step. We're now working with the Anacostia bid that later this year we'll be putting a giant mural under it, because it's pretty grim the entrance when you come down, recognized. You come down on Marion Barry Jr. Avenue, like into the park. So there's going to be a large mural that's in there. That's phase 2. Phase 3 that Christina Noel from the Anacostia bid is working on is actually a light installation that's under there too. That might take a little while longer, but how do we make sure that we're starting to unpack and undo the damage that the 295 freeway has made? Well, there's only 3 entrances over the course of about 5 miles to the park, right? Howard Road, the Marion Barry Jr. Avenue, and Nicholson Avenue. So that's sort of really critical. But I think some of those art interventions can certainly help.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Julio Ramirez. My question is connected to programming, especially at night. Is there any programming, if there is any, what are the potential strategies for programming at night and the usage of the park, post sunset?
Yeah, so I think the question was about programming, and particularly programming at night after the park opens. So something to mention that I think everybody knows, but it's important to share that the Bridge Park itself will continue to be owned by the city, be owned by DDOT. Actually, the asset's going to be owned by the city. But then we, Building Bridges Across the River, that have been leading this effort, a Ward 8-based nonprofit that runs the ARC, our Building Bridges Farms, Skyline Workforce Center, we will run the park. We have an 18-year history of doing arts and culture programming at the Art Theater and our Black Box, so we've got a long history of that. Certainly, the Anacostia River Festival for the last 10 years has been a tremendous way to test and pilot what the community is really responding to. Again, we encourage you to come on May 4th and celebrate the event. And what we see is we'll do some of the programming, but mostly it's how do we make sure that we're providing a stage and a platform for residents of DC, particularly East of the River residents, to perform in our amphitheater, to program the spaces at our community front porch and at Anacostia Plaza. One of the questions that comes up a lot that might have been inherent in there is what are the hours of the park, right? We see the park being, the hours of the park being run similar to any other DC park, from sort of sunrise to 10 p.m. or so, right? I'm going to be closed at night. There's going to be no barriers or anything else sort of closed, but just like any other park, not necessarily supposed to be there from 10 p.m. until sunrise. But we do see given the dramatic lighting that's going to be on there, I think there's going to be some great opportunities for programming in the amphitheater with the river in the backdrop, particularly for on those late summer nights. It's going to be a really amazing space.
Actually, I had 2 questions, but now I have a third from that. If the park closes at 10 p.m., will the 11th Street sidewalk still remain open? Cool, that was the easy question.
Can I jump in real quick? Both the 11th, so just like there is now, the existing, the 16-foot wide pedestrian and bike path on the 11th Street vehicular bridge, that's open 24 hours a day. And across the entire park, there'll be an additional 15-foot wide pedestrian and bike path, and that will be open as well. So.
Cool, thank you. Back to maintenance. With the cafe restaurant space, how can we guarantee that will actually be occupied and open and functioning and not just an empty space?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now we're designing this as a shell. We don't know who the provider is going to be, and we'll be hiring a restaurant consultant as that date gets closer. We're building in all the utilities to there, right? So the grease traps and hood ranges and sort of all of that. But we need to make sure that cafe responds to the community, right? I mean, like if you went to a park and they were selling nothing but like $25 mahi-mahi tacos, right? Nothing against like mahi-mahi tacos, but like, that makes a very important comment of who necessarily that's for, right? This needs to be for families. We're looking very much as sort of a fast casual concept. Again, I have no idea who that's going to be, but for families, that's affordable. That's something that we've tried to do with the Anacostia River Festival. To some degrees, we've learned a lot about that, but to make sure that there's a variety of food that is affordable for families. So we don't know who that's going to be now, but after we get under construction, we'll have starting some of that work with a consultant, and we'd welcome everyone's feedback too. Restaurant, folks that are interested, please send them our way.
Thank you. One more question. For DDOT, the maintenance of traffic or the traffic control plan, while this is under construction, Will we have any pedestrian bicycle closures, like either side of the Riverwalk Trail or along on the street itself?
Actually, I'll let Scott answer that.
So I can answer that too. There will be no, because we're building off the old piers, we don't anticipate any closures. There'll be some construction on the Anacostia River Trail in Anacostia Park, and so we're actually going to be building a trail a temporary trail on the other side to make sure. I mean, I use that trail Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm out there first thing in the morning, like running along that trail. So we're going to build the parallel trail that will remain. That parallel trail will remain open after we reopen the other side, so that it can be a continuous path. And I should mention too, I know there were some members of folks from the boating community that are here tonight. We've been working very closely with the Anacostia Community Boathouse and the boating community to make sure that there's a lot of regattas that are happening on the river. Anybody who's out there first thing in the morning sees the crew and dragon boats and sort of everything else, to make sure that we're communicating that construction schedule because that's the part of a race line underneath each of those the rivers too. And the Anacostia Community Boathouse Association actually participated in our design competition. So they were there helping to make sure that we respected that the deep history of river use.
Good evening. This sounds like an amazing place for all DC residents to enjoy. And so for those of us that don't live close, where will we find parking so that we can take advantage of this new park?
That's an awesome question. So I feel like I'm fielding too many of the questions, but that's what you get for being part of the project from the beginning. And then I'll answer your question directly. That's been one of the great ways to test during the Anacostia River Festival, how people get down to the park, right? I'm happy to say that we survey the heck out of folks that come down. Half of the folks come down either by bus, by bike, by walking, right? There's a number of bus trunk lines that come across the 11th Street local bridge with stops on either end, the circulator, the 92, the 90, the P6, which is critical. But we know that we want everyone to come by public transit, flying carpet, like whatever, right? To come there, but we know people are going to be driving. We're actually in some negotiations right now. There's 2 large parking lots on either side of the bridge that are existing now. So there's a large parking lot behind Maritime Plaza on it's an 885 the parking lot 885 space parking lot that's right there at 12th and Water Street. So we're talking to them about having a new pedestrian access directly to the bridge, which is right there, as well as another parking lot on the east of the riverside that's a little smaller. It's about 180 spaces. So if we're getting more than 1,000 cars that are there in a single day, that's a really good day for the park. So what we don't want, and I say this as a resident, they have it at 9th and I Southeast, so just on the other side of the river. We want to make sure, and sure DDOT would appreciate this too, that there are residents in Farallon, there's residents in Anacostia, there's residents in Navy Yard, there's residents in Capitol Hill, and that's not where we want everyone to park, right? We need to have sort of designated parking plan. So I hope that answered your question.